It was bike week this weekend on the beach, and that means a lot of accidents, and we hate to see them. We don't like, you see the signs that say share the roadways and make sure you're being safe and make sure everyone's being safe, but the reality is it does happen. If you're in that situation, maybe you did get into a wreck. I mean, what do you need to know, especially if you're a motorcyclist? I mean, is there anything different that they need to know versus if you're in a car, or is it very similar?
Well, if you're in a wreck, obviously the first thing you want to make sure that you're okay. I mean, obviously if you're dealing with a motorcycle wreck, more times than not, especially if they're involved in a wreck with a car or truck, the car or the truck is going to win that battle every day of the week. And so, unfortunately, a lot of these bikers end up suffering some very serious injuries. And so the medical treatment is first and foremost the thing that needs to be taken care of. Beyond that, the analysis of it from a legal standpoint is very similar to a regular car wreck. There are some differences in Florida law with regard to motorcycle riders versus private passenger vehicles, although we're probably going to be seeing some changes in that, and we can probably talk about that later in the show with some of the new legislation that's just been passed in this most recent session that just ended here in Tallahassee. But as of right now, whereas people who were involved in wrecks driving a passenger car or a passenger in a vehicle, you have what is called PIP benefits, no-fault benefits. PIP stands for Personal Injury Protection. That is a medical benefit that goes on your policy that pays for medical treatment up to $10,000. Motorcycles are exempted from having that type of insurance. So a lot of times if you're hurt in a car wreck, you're going to have medical insurance, but if you're involved in a motorcycle wreck, unless you have health insurance, you're not going to have that PIP insurance that goes along with your bike. But we may be seeing some changes in that because the legislature just passed, both houses passed a law finally bringing Florida in with, I think, 48 of the other states. I think there's one still left out there, but Florida should be joining the ranks of all the other states that require mandatory bodily injury liability coverage, which is a big step in the right direction for Floridians who are going to be out there on the road. It used to be, or it currently is, that in order to drive a vehicle legally in the state of Florida, you have to have insurance, but that insurance is you have to have PIP, which is that medical benefit for yourself or your passengers, and you have to have property damage liability, which is coverage that will be used to repair the other person's vehicle if you cause a wreck and you damage it. And that is it. You do not right now have to have bodily injury liability. So if you cause a wreck and you hurt somebody, the state of Florida up until now does not require you to have the type of insurance that can compensate that individual for their medical expenses, for their lost wages and the like. And so if you're one of those folks that's driving around without bodily injury coverage, you could be in a situation where your personal assets are exposed at $1 versus having that mandatory bodily injury protection. The law, once it is signed into law by Governor DeSantis, would require that all motorists have a $25,000 per person, $50,000 per occurrence bodily injury coverage, which is in line with pretty much every other state. Most states, if they have a minimum bodily injury coverage requirement, it's $25,000 per person, which sounds like a lot of money, but 2 or 3 visits to the ER, 3 or 4 CT scans, and then a couple visits to the specialist, and that money's gone pretty quickly.